What if the most meaningful love stories are not announced with words, but revealed in the quiet spaces between destinations? On an ordinary day, without a press release or flashing cameras, Wang was seen driving Shen Yue to her interview. No red carpet, no staged poses, just a car, a road, and a moment that felt disarmingly real. And somehow, that single act sent a ripple through the hearts of millions. Because this was not just a ride. It was care in motion. Right now, right before the next revelation, is your chance to stay connected. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another powerful story, another shocking twist, or another unforgettable journey. For years, Wang and Shen Yue have existed in the public imagination as something unfinished, something suspended between memory and possibility. Their on-screen chemistry once defined an era. Their names became inseparable, etched into the emotional timelines of fans who watched a fictional love story feel far too real to forget. Even after the cameras stopped rolling, the connection lingered, refusing to dissolve into nostalgia. And now, with one simple drive, the story breathes again. There is something profoundly intimate about driving someone to an interview. It is not glamorous. It is not performative. It is logistical, practical, and quietly supportive. It says, I am here before the spotlight turns on. I am present when the nerves are real and the stakes are personal. In an industry obsessed with grand gestures, this was the opposite. This was gentleness. Witnesses described the moment without drama, which somehow made it more powerful. Wang behind the wheel. Shen Yue beside him. A shared silence, perhaps broken by casual conversation, familiar laughter, or the kind of comfort that does not need to be documented to be understood. It was not meant for us to see, and that is precisely why it mattered. Because real affection rarely announces itself. Wang has always carried a certain intensity, a mix of rebellious charm and quiet thoughtfulness. Shen Yue radiates warmth, sincerity, and an emotional openness that draws people in. Together, they balance each other in ways that feel instinctive, not calculated. Even years after their most iconic collaboration, that balance still seems intact. Driving her to an interview was not a statement. It was a habit, and habits reveal far more than headlines ever could. Fans were quick to notice what words could not explain. The absence of distance, the ease of proximity, the unspoken understanding that does not belong to colleagues bound by schedules, but to people bound by familiarity. It reignited questions that never truly faded. Not because fans want a fairy tale, but because moments like this feel honest. And honesty is rare. In the world they inhabit, privacy is currency and speculation is constant. Every interaction is dissected, every smile analyzed. Yet this moment slipped through untouched, raw, and unpolished. It did not feel curated. It felt human. That is why it resonated. Because it reminded everyone that before the fame, before the characters, before the expectations, they were simply two people who once shared something meaningful. And perhaps still do. Whether this moment signifies romance, deep friendship, or something that exists quietly beyond labels is almost beside the point. What matters is the care. The choice to show up. The willingness to be present when nothing is being gained from it publicly. Love does not always look like confession. Sometimes it looks like making sure someone arrives safely. As Shen Yue stepped into her interview, composed and radiant, one cannot help but wonder what stayed behind in that car. A lingering concern. A silent wish for success. A presence that did not need to follow her inside to be felt. And Wang driving away, leaving the scene as quietly as he entered it, may have unknowingly left behind something else as well. A reminder that the most unforgettable moments are not scripted. They are lived. In a world that demands declarations, this was a whisper. And whispers, when heard by the right hearts, can be louder than anything else. And yet, the moment continues to echo long after the car disappeared from view. Because what people felt was not excitement alone. It was recognition. Recognition of something familiar. Something unfinished. Something that never quite faded, no matter how much time passed or how many separate paths unfolded. Wang and Shen Yue have grown, changed, matured under the weight of fame, but certain connections do not obey timelines. They wait. They adapt. They endure. What makes this moment so powerful is not what we saw, but what we didn't. No announcement. No explanation. No attempt to frame the narrative. Just presence. In an industry where relationships are often negotiated through publicists and headlines, choosing to be quietly supportive feels almost rebellious. Driving someone to an interview is not a move that generates buzz by design. It is not a strategy. It is an instinct, and instincts are born from familiarity that runs deeper than obligation. People forget that before the world watched them, they learned how to exist together in smaller spaces. Between takes. During long nights of filming. In moments where vulnerability was not optional but necessary to bring a story to life. That kind of shared experience leaves a mark. It shapes how two people understand each other long after the cameras move on. And perhaps that understanding never left. The internet may frame this as a surprise, but for those who have watched closely over the years, it feels more like a quiet confirmation. Not of romance, necessarily, but of connection. Of trust. Of a bond strong enough to survive distance, time, and the pressure to move on. There is something telling about the timing as well. Interviews are moments of exposure. They are where narratives are shaped, where confidence is tested, where a single answer can follow someone for years. Choosing to accompany someone to that threshold is not casual. It is a form of grounding, a silent reminder that no matter how bright the lights become, there is still something steady waiting just outside the frame. And that steadiness is rare. For Shen Yue, known for her sincerity and emotional transparency, support like this does not need to be spoken about to be felt. For Wang, whose public persona often leans toward confidence and strength, this act reveals something softer. A willingness to step back from the spotlight and let someone else shine, knowing that his role mattered even if no one noticed. But people did notice. Because love, in its truest form, has a way of making itself known without demanding attention. This moment did not answer questions. It deepened them. And perhaps that is exactly why it feels so compelling. It invites us not to speculate recklessly, but to reflect on how many meaningful connections are dismissed because they do not follow dramatic arcs. On how many real stories unfold quietly while the world waits for noise. Maybe this is not a reunion. Maybe it is not a rekindling. Maybe it is simply two people honoring something they once shared and still respect. Or maybe it is more. The truth is only they know. And that mystery is not a flaw in the story. It is the story. It just waits for the right moment to be traveled again.